Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins! He is the high jumper!
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another holiday edition of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. I am Rick Bucher, and I'm also sounding like Rick Bucher, or a little bit more so.
Yes, you are.
Yes, and he's Ryan Hollins, and you can find him at the Ryan Hollins on Twitter, trending on Twitter these days. You can also find the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends, and obviously you can find him on ESPN, which is why if you notice a slightly different audio level with my man Ryan, it's because he is phoning it in, not figuratively, but literally phoning it in from Bristol, Connecticut, where he is doing his TV duties. But
New York.
Oh, you're in New York. Oh, excuse me. I forgot.
Yeah,
because they moved. Yeah, they built. ESPN is so funny. So they built, you know this, right? They built studios down there when Stephen A. had his Frankly Speaking show. And then they pulled all of that back and pulled it back to Bristol and I guess pulled out the studios or broke down the studios or whatever. And now, many years later, they're attempting it again. I think Stephen A. even left and went to Fox or someplace in the meantime. It was that long ago. But in any event, they've always had this dalliance with, we'll get more people and it'll be easier for people to appear on shows if we're in New York rather than Bristol, Connecticut. And as you well know, that is a slog. I finally started flying. I would take it direct from San Francisco to Boston, rent a car, and drive the hour and 20 rather than fly into New York or into Hartford. Because if you flew into Hartford, it was only about a 35-minute drive, but you had to. There were no direct flights. You had to connect through Philly or DC or someplace, and the connect was always sketchy during the winter. So,
well, here's the tough part, to chime in on that real quick. Our production crew, they do the broadcast from Connecticut still. And then, obviously, ideally, you want to always have your guys on set. And when you bring in an analyst, they're always satellite in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So instead of getting somebody or a couple people on set, but, you will get more guys in New York. But as far as the talent, they're all running through Bristol. So, right. There's so much that people don't see. Yeah.
Well, so they don't have any of the hardware down in New York. They just basically have a set, and then they're piping it back to Bristol, and that's where the producers and the engineers and everybody are?
Yeah, we're doing all our production meetings. They're still in Bristol. But
whoa, wait a minute. So you got to go to Bristol for the production meeting?
No, they're video conferencing.
Oh, okay.
Video conference. So we just do it. But you know what? With the technology, it's not bad. It doesn't feel like anything. I think it's just tough production-wise. And when you're bringing in the analysts, all the main analysts are still in Bristol right now, you know?
All right, so before we get to our usual Friday podcast where we give you all of the games, and as of right now, we are recording this, again, in part because of Ryan's TV schedule. We're recording this late Thursday night, so we only have lines on 5 of the Friday night 10 games, and we'll give those to you, and then we will tweet out our remaining picks for the other 5 games at some point once they come up. But for now, we're only going to hit those 5. But before we hit the 5, and we do this on behalf of sportsbetcollective.com, we'll give you more information on that and why. I do want to hit a couple of the subjects that had you trending. That wasn't a joke. It's true. Ryan was trending on Twitter because of your takes on number one, Giannis Antetokounmpo and his MVP candidacy, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Was there another one? Was there another take that caught people's attention?
Well, the second thing I proposed, I threw out, I said, you may want to consider finishing games with Ben Simmons on the bench. And this caught attention earlier last season when I said it, and everybody went crazy. And now, since it was obviously true, not that he was on the bench, but they wouldn't go as far as, people were talking about Eastern Conference Finals. I know Stephen A. said that a couple people were just losing their mind over Philadelphia. Oh, that's what Ryan Hollins said. Oh, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. Everybody lost their mind. And then it came true, and now nobody remembers me saying that, Right, but obviously this Giannis deal has people in a frenzy. A lot of people, Rick, they watch highlights. They just watch the highlights. They see the numbers, but they don't know the X's and O's of the NBA basketball game. So when you say something like that, you offend a lot of people. They don't know the difference between a closer. They don't know the difference between a guy who's won an NBA championship, a guy who can go out and get you buckets and go play make the last minutes of a basketball game. And that's not a knock to Giannis to say that he can't do it. But right now, that's not what it is. And when I look at an MVP, I look at Harden, Rick, I look at LeBron, I look at Curry, I look at Durant, I look at Westbrook. He's about to average a triple-double for 3 straight seasons he's on pace to. Those are MVPs. And it's also, Rick, let's be honest, and I want to know how you feel about this. I feel like the MVP is more of a lifetime award. You don't get it your kind of first breakout season in the 4th place in the East. This is something like you've been putting in work to go and deserve this, unless you have those rare occasions with a guy like Derrick Rose that just ripped the league in half when he played and it was undeniable. But other than that, you go in and you deserve this. And it may not be the first or second time around that you maybe deserve the MVP.
Well, the beauty of it is that the league has never defined what MVP is. And that's why when people get all up in arms, it makes me laugh and the league's done it on purpose because they want this debate. This argument draws attention, and attention sells tickets and advertising and merchandise and everything else. And so they're never going to, if they defined it, if they said it's the most outstanding player, the most excellent player, the player's having the best season, or they said it's the best player on a championship caliber team, or the most indispensable. If they just did anything to define it, then they would cut the arguments in half. But they don't, because they have no desire to do that. And so anybody who gets all hot and bothered about somebody else's opinion about who the MVP is, I laugh at that, because everybody's entitled to their opinion. Now, the point that you made about him not being a closer is absolutely true. You look at and then some people said, they were showing video of him closing games. Again, it goes to your point. People don't understand what closing a game is. Like,
hey Rick, do you know how, if you watch that video, do you know how far they had to scour to find that, and how few and rare they are between seasons when you see a guy like Harden. Right. When they win 60 games in a season, he didn't have the ball in his hands the last 2 minutes. When Boston's winning, when he had 40 the other night against Philly, he had the ball in his hands that entire overtime. You don't put the ball in Giannis's hands. Right. It is not the same.
No, it doesn't happen. I mean, if you watch the game, you see it. The game on the line, they don't put the ball in his hands the way they do in the first 3 quarters. And if you look at Milwaukee's wins this year, I mean, they're having a great season, but they're 3-5 in games decided by 3 points or less. And not to say that that's some terrible mark.
When you're saying a guy's an MVP, it's a terrible mark.
Yeah. Well, in those 8 games, go and look at who those games were close with and how they ended up winning them. And it's not going to be Giannis getting the ball, clearing the floor. The Jordan flatten the offense, give him the ball at the top, and let him go to work. And so, I mean, you don't even see it. In fact, you made the case, which is very true. Like, in those situations, at best, they're putting the ball in Middleton or Bledsoe's hands, and they're having Giannis come up and set a screen and roll off of that. Now, that's not, okay, that is utilizing him. That's not a closer. It's not a closer. And if you think that that's not a prerequisite for being an MVP, that's fine. You're allowed. You're entitled to that opinion, but Ryan you're entitled to yours too. As I pointed out to some people on Instagram, like somebody was banging on you about your NBA stats, saying, "Yeah, you can't pontificate because you didn't have all-star stats or whatever." I'm thinking, okay, dude, whoever you are, like, what does that say about your credibility and your status to be able to criticize Ryan? Because I don't think you have any NBA stats. It's just sometimes the arguments and the logic kind of goes hard left in some of these situations, especially in social media. But anyway,
I'm actually tickled that you responded to that, Rick, because to me, you don't respond to anything that's not credible. Now, if somebody actually makes a good case, and anyone arguing that that vividly is not in the case, or to actually say Giannis is in the conversation. That's just by numbers, by excitement.
Right.
But to say that he deserves it over Harden, over LeBron, over Westbrook, over those guys, because right now you're dissing those guys. You're telling those guys you absolutely dismiss what they're doing and what they're going to do down the stretch as things heat up. So now you disrespect those guys. So now are you going to look at LeBron James and tell me he's not the MVP of the NBA right now?
Yeah.
Are you going to look at James Harden as he's heating up and say, down the stretch, you're not going to rely? Are you going to look at Kyrie Irving? You're not going to look at what Kyrie has started to do now in Boston, even though they lost tonight, and say he's not in consideration for that Giannis is some runaway, that he's not just in the conversation, he's the leader for it? No.
Yeah. Here's the difficulty is that, number one, you and I have been talking about this for a while. And so for someone to have a full context and understanding of what you're saying, they'd almost have to listen to everything that you've said about the subject. Because you can't, even in the minute and a half or whatever you get in a debate on TV, you're still tree-topping. There's no way that you can fully capture the subject and treat it accordingly. And the second part is that all those guys that you mentioned, however you define MVP, what is it that Giannis does better than, what's the category? What's the area? What's the thing that he does that you can't find one of those other guys who does better? Does he make his teammates better?
Nope.
Look at all the Bucks. To point out somebody like I can with Russ Westbrook, and I'm glad you brought his name up, because when we hear about how he held back Kevin Durant, even though Kevin Durant won 4 scoring titles and was a league MVP, and but Russ Westbrook was keeping Kevin Durant down. He just, if only Kevin had like a real point guard, think what he could do. Like, you got to be kidding me, right? And then Paul George, I don't know if you've happened to see him play in Oklahoma City, or if you've taken a quick glance at his numbers and what he's doing. He's having a career year in Oklahoma City. So I guess Russ Westbrook is holding him back too. Just imagine what he could do if he had, I can't even remember who he had in Indiana. I don't want to bust on Darren Collison because I like him.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, people have a traditional idea of what a point guard is. Russ Westbrook attracts so much damn. What's that?
I got an end all. There's one guy who has not gotten the MVP award, and this guy would get the MVP award from his years of service, and deservedly so. If you want to put it in this category of what you would establish Giannis of winning the MVP from, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis had been, if you want to categorize by, points, rebounds, blocks, kind of doing everything, Anthony Davis would have been the MVP of the NBA long ago.
Yeah.
Long ago. So if we're going to say closing doesn't mean anything,
right?
Finishing at the rim, playmaking, making your teammates better, AD would have been that a number of seasons ago. And winning doesn't make a difference, because keep in mind, you're 4th place, homie, and you're 4th place in the East.
Yeah. And
I don't want to seem like I'm dumping on Giannis right now, because I really like Giannis. I love that he's worked. I love he's improved every year. I love the way he's I love everything about him. So I don't want to make it seem like that. But we're not giving this dude the most valuable award in the NBA. You're not getting the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James award, the Harden award. Like, you're not getting that Durant award right now.
Right.
You're not
and it's
getting
not
the
to
Kobe
say that
Bryant award.
Yeah, and it's not to say that he can't become a closer. It's not to say that he can't grow into that, because I think he has the mentality for it. But as of right now, anybody who's watching the Milwaukee Bucks, if you understand the game, you can't watch the Bucks and say he's their closer. He's not their closer.
I'll give him credit here. If I want to compare him to Ben Simmons, and I am critical of Ben closing games because of his lack of willingness to shoot a jump shot, Giannis will take a jump shot.
Yes.
It's sparingly, but he will take it. And you know what? Giannis actually can pass and play make. He's just gotten so determined to get to the rim that right now he's not passing. He's not making those plays. But I believe, if anything, he is capable of playing that kind of point forward role. But right now, he's just a scorer.
You know, it's funny because there are times Ben Simmons to me looks like he's not sure he wants that role. His confidence about going to the line or taking a shot is let me set somebody else up. Giannis has not demonstrated that to me. He will not trust his jumper, but and this is where he kind of gets into trouble because he tries to create something and he's not quite there yet. So I'm with you 100% on that. And the reason that I responded is because I just read, first of all, there was a lot of response to you on Instagram. Gosh. And there was a lot of like inane things. And sometimes I just get to a point where I go, look, there's way too much stupidity going on here. I have to say something. You can argue and I can disagree, but if you just say things that are inane, sometimes I don't care if you have a blue check next to your name or you don't, you're credible or not. Sometimes you need to put people on check.
Well, RB, you know what though? Let's be accountable. Sometimes, and we do this on Bucher and Friends all the time, because we need our numbers, and there's no problem with that. But we throw out the clickbait. When I say clickbait, that's something you're going to see half of it. We're going to put enough to tease you, enough for you to go, what the heck are they talking about?
Right.
And if you take the 5 minutes to go and listen to the pod or listen to the take or watch the show, now you get something. But if all you do is read the headline or what we actually put out, you're going to be up in arms. You're going to be held to a quick opinion, especially if you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, and here's the other part too. Like you and I both know, we both had to say, hey, I had that guy wrong, or that guy evolved into more than I thought he could be, or whatever the case may be. I mean, Ben Simmons who knows? Ben Simmons may prove us wrong. Ben Simmons may.
I will say not in the sense that for me, Ben Simmons ain't Magic Johnson or LeBron James.
Well, no.
Is he a long-time All-Star? Yes, but for me, if people have actually heard what I said he can't shoot right now. He won't be able to finish games until he actually willing to shoot. But to say that, why he won't shoot, I just say he's not. I don't want to say about winning, but he doesn't have his eyes on that type of prize, and it ain't for everybody. So I don't knock him. He's going to be a heck of a player, but he's just not going to be that dude. He's not going to be LeBron. He's not going to be that guy. He doesn't want to be. Right. And LeBron was a guy who couldn't shoot, but LeBron took threes the first 3 quarters of the game and worked on it until he got good at it. Yeah. This was he evolved. I mean, Rick, I want to say 8 or 9 seasons into the league until LeBron became a refined 3-point shooter, and maybe 10 or 11 before he was a fourth quarter 3-point shooter.
He's still a confidence shooter. Like his form, he amazes me that he's shooting it as well as he is, because he doesn't square up. He's always kind of drifting one way or the other on a lot of them. And yet he's got that. Well, he's got the mid-range step back that he hits. Yeah. I mean, he's kind of become a bad shot maker in some ways.
Well, yes and no. No, the form isn't perfect, which you know what LeBron has done from when he first came in the league? He took a lot of motion out of his shot. Yes. And for athletic guys, this is the gift and the curse. For an unathletic guy, he's got great balance because he can't jump high. For an athletic guy,
exactly.
When you just get up a bunch of group shots, you aim the ball in because you're so athletic and so strong, you can shoot and almost take a shot on the way down.
Yeah.
So you'll see Blake Griffin seem at times where Blake Griffin will literally shoot a flat line where he's on the way down, but he's strong enough to do that.
Vince Carter fades on his three. I mean,
and LeBron, what he did is he just simplified his shot. He took a lot out of it.
You know who else has? And nobody's talked about it, or I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball has stripped that down. It's still kind of coming up on the left side of his face, but he's become more of a catch and shoot guy, and he's clearly taken a lot of the swing through load and swing through, and it's, I don't know what his numbers are, but I watched the shot. He has
much better.
It looks much better without question.
And you know what? I don't mind Lonzo either, because if you watch one thing Lonzo does, he doesn't hold his follow through. But I played with Ray Allen, and I actually had a talk with Ray on this, and I don't want to say, I just had a discussion. I said, man, you know what, Ray? You never hold your follow through, and everybody teaches hold the follow through, stick the elbow.
Yeah. And
he doesn't do that. But obviously it's straight. It's not as much of a toss as Lonzo Ball, and by no means am I comparing the two. But you see he doesn't hold that follow through. And if you even watch Steph, especially on the quick shots, never holds a follow through. Rick, you watch that all the time. He's not locking that elbow out.
Right. No, he doesn't. But when he practices, he does.
Interesting.
Yeah. I was watching him the other day, and on the other hand, it's funny. You watch Steph, and then you watch Quinn Cook.
Clay. I'll say real quick, Clay overly holds it, right?
Yeah, that's another subject we have to get to at some point. Draymond Green's hip and Clay's head are two issues that are far greater than where KD is going to play next. We'll have that. We'll have that conversation at some point. All right. We do need to get to our picks, though, and we have only 5 of them right now. As I said, 5 of them are up, and
I'm watching the end of this Lakers game, so I'm gonna need you to tee me up on these right now.
I'm watching the end of it too, and as of right now, I had the Lakers winning, and they were plus 4, so I think I'm pretty safe. There's 4.5 left, and they're up by 2. Even if they lose by 1 on a 3 here, I'm still a winner, and that's the most important thing. So let's see. And that was my pick. That was one of my picks today for sportsbetcollective.com. Let's be real. Betting on
Ingram. Brandon Ingram just tricked off a free throw or 2.
I know. We can tell you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. I'm getting it just a little quicker than you are. But let's be real. One of the reasons that I'm working with sportsbetcollective.com is because betting on sports, first of all, it's being embraced by the professional leagues now, but it makes the games a lot more fun to watch. And I am here, Ryan and I are here on this podcast to give you our favorite NBA picks. Not only our favorite, all of the NBA picks on a Friday. I give you my favorite NBA picks during the week, and you can find that at sportsbetcollective.com with commentary you won't find anywhere else. And the first pick is free. You can also sign up for the newsletter with free weekly picks from top experts, and it's not just with the NBA, but the NFL, college football, college hoops, NCAA tournament coming just around the corner, and obviously the NHL. Now, why? There's plenty of these sites out there. Why sportsbetcollective.com? Well, first of all, we have got a credible cast of sports media experts, professional sports bettors, retired athletes, sports-obsessed entertainers. You'll recognize all of the names. So whether you're seasoned sharp or total sports betting beginner, come check out sportsbetcollective.com. It's also the most affordable one that you can find. And we're going to help you beat the odds no matter the size of your bet. So come check out all of my picks at sportsbetcollective.com. And we thank sportsbetcollective.com for sponsoring this particular segment of Bucher and Hollins. All right, let's get after it. There's a number of games this week, and I'm very interested to see how much you stand by your belief that it's really difficult to beat the same team twice in short order, because we have a lot of home and homes that are happening here with
Did Sacramento just go for the win? Oh, my God, Rick.
I believe that they did. I've seen them celebrate. I was actually in the midst of
Bogdanovich just hit.
Three-pointer Bogdanovich, and it is good. And that is the game. Tyson Chandler switching out and having to guard that. He challenged it about as well as he could. Does not matter. That's a clean look.
This game was a little personal for the Kings. This rivalry has not gone away, I see. It's very much renewed.
No, and it meant something for the Lakers, too, because they were not only without LeBron James, they were also without Rajon Rondo. And so it was an opportunity for the young guys to show what they could do. I really thought that they were going to pull this off. And
yeah,
that's a tough one. That's a tough one. But we are all the winners because, and if you had my pick, I told you to take the Lakers +4. So even though the Kings won the game, you would have won your bet. All right, so we're going to give you more of that right now. And as I said, we got a lot of home and homes, a lot of teams that played on the opposing court 2 days ago. And that includes the Brooklyn at Charlotte now playing the second leg of that home and home. They played in Brooklyn 2 nights ago, and it was a crazy, crazy double overtime game. I mean, I'm going to have Jared Dudley from the Nets as my special guest coming up because I want to talk specifically about that game. That game was
that's going to be a treat.
It was insane, and Jared's always a great guest. All right, so Brooklyn won that game. I believe it was 134-132, and in double overtime. This one's in Charlotte. The Brooklyn Nets are getting 4.5 points as the visiting team, and the over-under is 221. Do you want me to start with this one?
Yeah, start with it.
All right, so when it comes to the over-under, Brooklyn on the road, I'm going to give you a little history here on their over-under records. Brooklyn is 6-10 on the road when it comes to making the over, and Charlotte is a little bit better as a home team. They're 10-9. But all things considered, it took them 2 overtimes to get to that number. Neither team is playing at a particularly high pace or scoring in a particularly high fashion. I'm going to take the under on this one, and I'm going to defy your it's hard to beat a team twice. I think Charlotte actually could win this game, but the 4.5, I think it's going to be a close. I think these teams will play each other close again. Charlotte might end up winning, but I don't think it's going to be by more than 4.5. So I'm taking Brooklyn, and I'm taking the under.
That's funny. You're really knowing how I think, Rick. Like, if I could even say it, it is hard to beat a team twice. And the second time you play a team, you both know what each other does well. You know, if you're Brooklyn, you know you're going to get a high dose of Kemba Walker. And teams are starting. You saw he had to hit Marvin Williams in the corner for game the other day because teams are starting to load up on him. They're saying you're too good, Kemba. You're not going to beat us. So I'm going to go Brooklyn. I'm going to take the numbers and I'm going to go with the under for the exact same reason. So, Rick, we've been doing this for quite some time now. You know how I'm thinking now.
I'm starting to get a feel for it for sure. All right, the next one. The Chicago Bulls are visiting the Washington Wizards. The Chicago Bulls are getting 5.5 points, and the over-under is 217. Where are you going on this one?
I'm going to take the Wizards, and I'm going to give up that 4 because there's more of a mess in Chicago. In Washington, they actually are playing hard now with the Ariza. They're kind of taking a tough loss the other night, but they are playing hard. And I'm going to go with the over because both these teams still do not defend. And I don't know if John's just legs are shot. They're not the same, but he's not able to get after guards the way that he used to. And he's not changing the way that he's playing guys, but they are playing hard. But I don't know if it's over usage of minutes, but they're just not good defensively right now.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm going to take Washington, but I'm going to go under just because Chicago has really struggled to score and Washington has scored in big numbers, but only, largely against teams that like to play open and free and get up and down the floor. And so that number is very gettable if one of them blows up, and Washington certainly could run away with this, but like I can feel a 107-90 win for the Wizards where it's a blowout and yet they don't put up big numbers. Another reason I'm going with the Wizards is because I think they've lost the last 2, but that was away. When they're at home, they do play with a certain amount of pride. Even against good teams coming in, if they lose, they play them tooth and nail. So I like where they are. I like the chances of them dispatching the Bulls. And you're right, the Bulls have some things to work out right now. All right, next one is the Atlanta Hawks visiting the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Atlanta Hawks are getting 9.5 points, and the over-under is 230. I'm going to go under because Minnesota has played some decent defense over the last couple of weeks. I think they've improved on that front, and they don't play as up and down as you would think they would. I think that's part of Tom Thibodeau's influence. And surprisingly, Atlanta has only made the over once in the last 4 games, and only one of those was higher than the 230 that they're giving here. So I'm going to roll with the under, and the 9.5 is just tough.
Right.
Because Minnesota, I fully expect Minnesota to win, but I'm going to go with Atlanta and the 9.5. I think and it's in Minnesota, but I think they can make it competitive. It's hard for me seeing the Timberwolves beating the Hawks by double digits.
You know what? I'm actually going to give up the 9.5 and go Minnesota, just in the sense that I think Minnesota's got to prove a point, and it's like, okay, finally we got a punching bag. You know what I'm saying? Like they have played hard. They are losing some tough games just to some teams that are better.
Yes.
So I'm going to give that up. And I'm going to agree with you that Atlanta's going to have a tough time scoring. You know, they rely so much on the 3 ball, and that's really their new philosophy for everybody to be catching and shooting threes and almost like forcing it that at this time of year, it's tough for them to keep up that pace. So I'm going to go up that under because now we're saying both teams are going 115 on the score. So I'm going to go with that under.
And you know what? I just realized... You know what? I like where Derrick Rose is. I like this team. I like your argument about they've had to play some really tough teams and tough teams that have made them grind, and they haven't always had the result. I think you're right. I think they're going to try to beat them up.
And keep in mind, they took care of the Bulls. They took care of business with the Bulls just recently, you know?
Also a good point. So I'm going to go Minnesota. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to give up the 9.5, and I'm going to go to the under. So we're the same on that one. All right. Next one up, the Dallas Mavericks are visiting the New Orleans Pelicans. This is another home and home. They just played in Dallas. Dallas winning that game. Dallas is now getting 5 going to New Orleans, and the over-under is 230.
Dallas is getting 5?
Yes.
Well, then I'm gonna take Dallas then because I think these teams are a lot more evenly matched. They both don't necessarily defend, but you still have DeAndre Jordan down there. I'm gonna go over on the numbers just because there's not a lot of defense being played by either side, and also one thing is really important between these two teams is just pace. They're playing at a hellish pace. They're getting up and down the floor. You don't see them, playing out the shot clock. So I'm going to go over on this number.
Yeah. By the way, the score Wednesday was Dallas 122, New Orleans 119. So they made the over comfortably, and yet it was a close game. And to your point, they're familiar with each other. It's hard to imagine that one's going to blow out the other. I just don't see that. The only tricky part about this is that is a healthy number at 230, but you know what? I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to take Dallas and the 5 points, but I am going to go under. I'm going to think that the familiarity is hopefully going to breed making things a little bit tougher. So you're going Dallas and the over. I'm going Dallas and the under. All right, the last one that's available to us right now, and it's another home and home. San Antonio going to Denver. San Antonio is getting 4 points, and the over-under is 214. The last time that these two teams met, San Antonio won that game 111-103. I love the fact that the over-under is set at the total for that game. Oh, that's so good. There's and the total for that game. So that went under. They set it at 215.5 for that game. So they went under on that game, and now they've dropped it down another 1.5 to see if you're still willing to go under. Now, San Antonio's gone under 7 of the last 9 games, largely because their D has stifled the other team. They've been scoring a lot, but they've kept their opposition in the 90s, and that's prompted them not to make the over. So I'm thinking that Denver is going to score better at home. And I don't know that they're going to necessarily shut down San Antonio. As tricky as that is, I'm going to go the over, and I'm still going to stay with San Antonio just because I believe that they're going to out-execute Denver the same way they did in San Antonio. I don't think the home court is going to matter.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go San Antonio just because of the injuries and the sense of urgency. I'm going to go with the under also because, the one thing I do also like about Denver is that they play hard. Like, they bring it. They've got a high motor no matter who's in that lineup on the defensive end. And obviously, both teams are struggling to score. They're getting to the point where they're starting to figure each other out. So I'm going to go off that under. And, I'm actually going to go San Antonio.
All right. So that does it for the 5 picks. As I said, the other 5 games we will tweet out through Bucher Friends on Twitter and Instagram, along with obviously the link to this podcast. And because you have TV duties coming up, we'll let you go at this point. I want to thank everyone for listening, following us, even through the holidays. The numbers have been surprisingly good. This is usually a quiet time, so we appreciate that you're making us part of your holiday season. Remember, you can follow him at the Ryan Hollins. You can see him on ESPN. You can hear him on NBA radio, and obviously you can find him here. You can find me on Bleacher Report and at Rick Bucher on Twitter, and you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. That's it. Our next podcast will be Will Blackman and myself breaking down the last weekend of the NFL season as we get ready for the playoffs. We'll give you a look behind as far as what happened on Sunday and a look ahead for what you can anticipate. In the meantime, enjoy your holidays, and thanks for listening.